I first met Minister Imbert 2 weeks after he became Minister of Finance. And that was after repeated requests to meet with him. And at that meeting, Imbert was only interested in one thing. How could he get his hands on CLICO's assets? And when I told him that the central bank had already formulated the CLICO resolution plan that had basically identified the assets that would be sold, when they would be sold, an estimated price, and we had already informed the public in the interest of transparency and good governance what this plan was all about, he just then became vexed and abruptly ended the meeting and walked out the room. At no point in time then did we ever discuss the central bank overdraft.
We were running on fumes. We were running on fumes. We were running on fumes. The previous government maxed out our overdraft at the central bank.
The governor of the central bank came to the new Minister of Finance smiling to advise him that we only have cash to run the country for 3 days. That we only have cash to run the country for 3 days.
Let me come back to this lie that the country only had 3 days worth of money to run. We had about $5.5 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and over $10 billion in official reserves. So there was no way that you could say that the country had no money and that the treasury was empty. We all know that there's no economic turnaround. This country has gone through 5 consecutive years of successive economic contraction. The numbers would show that between 2016 to 2019, we've contracted by almost 10%. A whopping $70 billion has been borrowed by this administration in 5 years. And if we count now the fact that they've raided the Heritage and Stabilization Fund 3 times, so far the total brings us to about $1.2 billion taken from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And what is key about that is they've taken this money from the HSF, but there's been no accountability as to what it has been spent on. The general reply when Minister Imbert has been asked, well, what have you spent this HSF money on? He says, it's for the general service at Trinidad and Tobago.
So when I come into government, I meet a whole set of loan arrangements for hospitals, for military vessels, for all sorts of things. Billions. Arima Hospital, 1.8 billion. Kuva Hospital, 1.5 billion. Point Fortin Hospital, 1.6 billion. Vessels coming from Holland, 1.3 billion. You know, we ain't sending back nothing, you know. So we ain't sending back no boat.
We have approximately $10 billion in official reserves. We have $5.6 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund.
A lot of the ministries have money in bank accounts that the last government borrowed that they couldn't spend because they ran out of time. A lot of the ministries have money in bank accounts that the last government borrowed that they couldn't spend because they ran out of time. Sport is one of them. Sport had $500 million sitting down in a bank account, believe it or not. But sport had that.